Hello everyone, it's Francis Widdowson here. I am here at the University of Calgary and we are in front of the Pride steps, I guess they'd be called. So they are steps that are painted in the Pride flag colors, which itself is a contentious subject for discussion because some would argue that universities should not be painting things with these political statements. Others would say it's important for universities to be doing this because that is what leads members of marginalized groups to feel that they are included within the university system. Anyway, I am here with a number of different people. We are waiting for Rachel to arrive, but she's en route, so we're just going to start because we don't want to keep everyone waiting. But I have Kathy Drake, who is just behind the camera now, and I have Morrigan, who is part of the free speech coalition that is just starting to develop in Calgary, which we are working hard to try to increase the numbers of people who understand the terrible free speech problems that we are facing, not only in universities, but also in Canadian society as a whole. So today, and as for people who don't know about the spectrum speed epistemology method, it is derived from the work of Peter Boghossian, who you can watch on the internet, and he was a former professor at Portland State University and was alarmed about what he was seeing at that university. Anyway, he developed this method. He wrote this book called How to Have Impossible Conversations. He wrote a number of important, helpful hints on how to proceed, and then he fine-tuned his method to have these mats, which you can maybe see. They're just lined up against the steps there. Neutral, slightly agree, strongly disagree. And so what we're going to do is we are looking at the subject today of trans activism, which in my view is, along with the Israel-Palestine conflict and indigenization issues, this is the third prong of the difficulties in having conversations trinity. So it's number 3, and it perhaps is the most contentious of all the different subjects that you can be looking at. Today we are going to be looking specifically at the claim trans rights are human rights. And I used to get this told to me all the time when I was trying to discuss matters pertaining to trans activism, and that raises a lot of questions about what that means, and we're going to be exploring that today in a number of different claims. So that is the master claim that we're going to be looking at today. Some other claims which you can probably think about are, matters pertaining to human rights. So what are human rights? Questions, that's the question, but you would have a number of claims that would come out of that. Human rights include a right to gender identity. That could be an example of this. Or you could look at trans activism, claims pertaining to trans activism or questions pertaining to trans activism. What are, in fact, trans rights? What does that comprise? What is that comprised of? And, trans rights are the right to go into, and this is putting it in a rather contentious manner, the right to go into the bathroom of one's opposite sex. Perhaps that might be it, or the right to not be discriminated against on the basis of one's gender identity. It's hard to know, but it's interesting to think about what the various human rights are, what the various trans rights are, and how those both intersect with one another. Anyway, so what we are going to do now is we are going to start with the claim trans rights are human rights. And then what you do with this method is you get people to stand on the mats as to whether they strongly agree or they strongly disagree, neutral. So if you're confused, if people are confused, just go to neutral. And then, try to find out what this is all about, because you don't really know what's going on. Then once people are on those mats, we ask them, why are you on the strongly agree mat or the neutral mat or the disagree mat? And people will put forward the reasons why they have chosen that mat. Then you have two possible ways of drilling down on this situation. One is to ask some clarifying questions. I just mentioned it to you, what are trans rights, what are human rights? Or you can just start over, get everyone to go to neutral, and then we can have another claim that is getting at these issues with a little bit more clarity. Because often you make a claim and it's just so confusing, no one really knows what's going on. So if you can make a more specific claim or one that's more on point, that's very helpful. Anyway, so if people want to come and introduce themselves who are going to be starting. Okay, so what is your name, sir?
My name is Morrigan. I am a peace activist. I'm also a journalist. And I think one reason why I am here today to explore methods of free speech is because I used to be a student leader of clubs and centers, similar in all Western universities that deal with these issues. 13 years later, I have good friends who were kicked out of this university by those same organizations that I used to lead, that I used to run, that I used to care about so much. These forces are now kicking out people who I know are not homophobic, they're not transphobic, they're not hate speech, they're just, asking questions. And people are not able to tolerate questioning or views that are different than theirs. And I'm very concerned.
Thank you very much. Who's next? Okay.
I'm Rachel Caroline Plaza. I too am an activist, and I'm here to promote free speech on campuses and all across Canada, fighting against BC 63. And I'm just here to have the conversation and get it going on campuses and making sure people aren't afraid to have this talk.
Okay, and then Kathy, did you want to introduce yourself here? This is Kathy Drake.
Hello, my name is Kathy Drake. I am a student at Mount Royal University. I'm very concerned with indoctrination happening on campuses and how our universities are no longer truly academic institutions in spirit if they don't allow critical thinking and debate, and if the university does not remain neutral and chooses to espouse various values or positions as opposed to allowing those positions to be debated openly. So that's why I'm here, and I'm not sure if I'll be behind the camera most of the time and make sure everything's kosher that way, or if I'm going to be up there, we'll figure it out and we'll play by ear.
Okay, I think we'll start with Rachel and Morrigan, and then Kathy can make sure everything is happening as it should, and then you can join in as we go along. Okay, so we're going to start now. So people who want to go, if you could just go onto the neutral area that is there, and we can start with this claim, which is going to be the main claim that we're going to be discussing today. So the main claim is trans rights are human rights. 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Okay, so if you could just lift up that mat to show people where you both are, which is a bit unfortunate. Kathy, do you have a bit of a different position than that on this issue?
Yeah, I'm going to go to strongly disagree.
Okay, well, that's good. We need Kathy up here, so hopefully things will take care of themselves.
Okay, you're out of the frame just a little bit if you want to.
Am I in the frame now?
Yeah.
That's all set up, though? Yeah. Okay. No, you got the strongly agree. Yep, you got to go grab the strongly disagree. So, the situation is, for the claim, trans rights are human rights. Kathy is on the strongly disagree mat, and Morrigan and Rachel Rachel's on the slightly disagree mat, and then Morrigan is on the slightly agree mat. So I'm just going to ask them what is why they're on the. So I guess I'll start with Morrigan. So Morrigan, why are you on the strongly agree? The slightly agree mat?
Oh, sure, yeah. I slightly agree. I obviously care deeply about civil liberties, but I think that the modern movements today care about identity politics and not about civil liberties at all. I don't know if identity politics are compatible with civil liberties, and I think that not everything that is being demanded through this identity politics is realistic. So of course I think the bottom line is that every civilization should have no undesirables. There should be nobody who is excluded, and everyone should have the legal basis to access the society and partake in the economy. That's the legal basis for that is called a constitution, in which we all have rights to partake in society.
Okay, so just so that I can understand you correctly, you are arguing that you slightly agree because you think that trans rights feed into basic values that all humans, that should be respected for all human beings, but you're a little worried about what potentially it could include in terms of shutting down free speech and violating various other civil liberties. Is that sort of what your view is?
I think absolutely. If identity politics are not able to fight for their own rights, depending on what it is. In this case, it's gender diversity. If they're not able to respect the rights of others, including free speech, then it's not compatible with the initial inquiry that people are seeking rights. And so I'm here on slightly agree because it is contentious, and most of this movement is not what it says it's for.
Okay, so I think I'm going to go to Kathy now, because Kathy is on the strongly disagree statement, or on the mat. Why, Kathy, do you strongly disagree with the claim trans rights are human rights?
Because I think that it is kind of absurd to create a new category of human rights. I think that human rights already cover human rights. Like, you're not allowed to be assaulted for no reason, you're not allowed those sorts of things. You have a right to body autonomy, but you don't have a right to claim an identity and then force me to cater to that identity, whether it's verbally with pronouns, or whether it's you having access to women's only spaces if you believe you're a woman. That's why I strongly disagree.
So I'm just going to ask you a clarifying question here, which is, if it were the case that trans rights did not require people to agree with what's being argued, would you then see that trans rights are human rights? If it didn't have that, you've got to affirm this identity aspect of it.
Well, I can't see how there'd be any... for example, one of the things that trans rights claim is that trans people have a right to surgeries, for example, and health care that specifically pertains to changing or attempting to mimic the opposing gender. You cannot actually change your gender, but I don't think that's a human right. Just the same way as I don't think a woman who is aging has a right to paid for plastic surgery or implants if she doesn't like her breasts or anything.
All right, I'm going to control this, and I want to get to hear from Rachel about this matter before we get. There's a lot of things being said which we got to drill down on here, but before we get into that, we want Rachel's to explain why she's on the slightly disagree mat with respect to the claim
trans rights are human rights?
So I fall in line with Morgan. I also fall in line with Catherine. I feel like I'm just trying to have this healthy debate, but I do understand, why they could be considered quote unquote trans rights because of the issues with discrimination. However, I don't believe that they need anything separate from human rights. I also find that there's a fine line between, personally, I don't believe in trans, so I don't believe people are trans. I believe that's a whole mental illness, and I don't feel like we should be catering to their mental illness. I also feel like most post-secondary colleges, universities, and schooling are indoctrination camps that are breeding woke therapists that will...
Okay, we're getting a bit off here. You said a lot of things which are going to make people a little bit agitated here, which is what this is all about. People should feel free to say things that they think are true, and of course they got to defend those things. So, Rachel, you made the very, very contentious claim that trans basically it doesn't really exist. Is that correct? Like it doesn't exist in some kind of material reality?
I would claim that a true trans or somebody with body dysmorphia is incredibly rare. What we're seeing now is a social contagion. I don't believe that children are trans. I believe they're being bred to be confused under the guise of having other genders, which are non-existent. There's only two genders. So I do feel like, So you said bred to be confused. Are you talking about socialization, or are you talking about something else? No, I feel like there is an agenda to destroy the family unit, to blur the gender lines with children, to make them confused. I think it is part of a sterilization, depopulation attempt, because after these children are mutilated, they won't be having children. We are feminizing men. We're making women more masculine. So I do believe that is part of the agenda to create the social contagion, to have to destroy future generations.
Okay, well, Morrigan, how do you respond to Rachel? Tell Rachel what you think about what she's just said.
Oh, that's it's hard to contend with things that are societal narratives, because wide sweeping claims don't always apply universally. And in history, I think during the civil rights movement of the 80s, 90s, or even all the way from the 60s to the 90s, a lot of this was not happening. And there was gender diversity at that time. There was the gay rights movement at that time. And it was so vital, it was so alive, it was so full of humanity, and it uplifted everyone. It was not focused on pushing one category's rights over everyone else's. So I would just say, I don't disagree. I don't. But if we look at history, things have changed. There's something going on today.
So would you say that Rachel's points, there might be some truth to these claims, but as overarching statements, there could be cases where it's not true, what she's saying? Like, for example, I'm just thinking of trans is a mental illness, that claim. Like, I can see that, you might have cases in that, but you also might not have cases like that. What's your thoughts on that?
You know what? I would think to make the same argument I just did is that, even being gay in today's society, I feel like it's hard not to be mentally ill just based on what's going on in the media, what's going on in the culture. And during the 80s and 90s when we won our rights, it wasn't the same. So there's a historical discrepancy. There's something new. There's new. So as a universal statement, I don't think it's the case. But in the current culture, I think she's onto something.
Okay, so I think we might want to have another claim here, just to go. So guys, go to neutral, And what we want to do is we've got a number of different issues that have been raised here, which are hard to kind of get to the bottom of. So what I thought came out of Morrigan's claim, because he was mentioning the gay rights movement in the 1960s and the 1970s. So that's often a very contentious kind of area, the LGBTQ kind of umbrella. And so go to neutral. You guys are on neutral. The claim is that gay rights and trans rights are the same. Are the same. So these are the same. They're under. They can be put in the LGBTQ umbrella relatively easily. Okay. So, Kathy, how do you feel about taking the strongly agree position? Okay. And this is not necessary. We just want to have a contrary position that is going to be expressed. So I'll get you guys. Maybe Morrigan, I'll ask you first because you seem to have some background in this kind of activist struggles. So why are you strongly disagreeing with the claim gay rights and trans rights kind of fit very comfortably under the same LGBTQ umbrella?
Just to clarify, strongly disagree. So why are they different? I think that, in philosophy or philosophy of law, especially in terms of what is the conception of our rights and what is the conception of our social contract, I think, rights are awarded out of dignity for human beings, and it really comes down to natural law. The gay rights struggle was aligning with something that actually was, in the sense that we're aligning with the fact that there's natural variance to sexuality in natural populations, in all populations. And
just one sec, I just want to hold you up there. You mentioned natural law. What do you mean by natural law?
Well, by natural law, I think that humans have a nature, and that nature is one of intelligence, and that as human beings, we should live in organized civilization. And in order to do that, we have, modern nation states with a constitution to award dignity to all people who live in that civilization. And so these conceptions are that recognizing what is true about humans, and the civil liberties struggle was, to align to this, and essentially we were aligning to the real world about.
Okay, I just want to, because I don't want to lose track of this thread here. So, and I just want to repeat back to you what I think possibly your argument is about, and just to be clear, are you arguing that gay rights have some kind of rootedness in natural law?
Well, I would make the discrepancy that human beings are intelligent, and we need dignity in order to live in civilization. But words and labels are not reality, and I think trans rights are moving in the opposite direction of the actually existing nature of things. They use big pharma, chemicals and pills, and they use surgeries in order to change things from what naturally is.
So maybe let me just repeat back to you what you're saying, what I think you're saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the gay rights movement is rooted in something that has some natural characteristics and doesn't need artificial assistance in any way. Whereas the trans rights area needs, like as you said, surgeries, hormones, and so on. So without those, it wouldn't seem to exist, at least in the current form, and therefore it sort of calls into its question its what might be considered naturalness. Have I got that sort of what you're talking about?
You know, I might go really radical here and say, really radically, extremely abolitionist, that, you know, all of this ABC, LGB, whatever alphabet, the rhetoric, the labels, and all of this are new. They're very new, and they're not necessary in order to live with dignity and as we are. And I think that the gay rights struggle was, we didn't have any of this, and we were simply asking to be human.
Okay, so I'm gonna go and get. I don't want to. Okay, I'm gonna let Rachel respond to that, and perhaps add some of your own thoughts, whatever you prefer to do here.
I completely agree with Morgan about this, and I do feel, once again, this is something entirely different. I was, for many, many, many years, a gay rights activist. I supported the community full on, but again, something here is changing, and it is destroying lives. I don't feel like being gay has destroyed, I mean, you know, I think it is more acceptable, way more acceptable now to come out and to live a good, healthy life. But what they're doing is destroying lives with the trans agenda, destroying bodies, again with mutilation. So I do feel like what is happening now is quite nefarious.
Okay, so Kathy, you've been listening to this, and you are going to put forward, is this something that you believe yourself?
On all of these, I'm fairly agnostic, and so I can change my position and try and see various points of view. So the original claim was trans rights and gay rights are the same. And I'm going to strongly agree with that.
Or maybe not the same, might be a bit too strong, but can comfortably sit under the LGBTQ umbrella. So there might be slight differences, but they're pretty much compatible with one another, is kind of what's being got at with that claim.
I could agree with that, and I could agree with it in a contrarian way, in the sense that I think that, again, they're trying to gain more than basic human rights. So, for example, with gay rights, you know, having the right to surrogate mothers to produce families because they can't reproduce naturally, and then having mothers who are vulnerable economically sign contracts to have their babies taken away from them at birth. Those sorts of situations are going above and beyond basic human rights and actually infringing on the rights of others in a very Orwellian way.
But what does that have to do with the strongly agree position? Or are you arguing another position?
So I'm strongly agreeing that trans rights and gay rights are very similar and under the same umbrella, in that they are going above and beyond what we already have as basic human rights. So, for example, in countries where they hang you for being gay, that's not anti-gay rights, that's anti-human rights. You should not be executed simply because someone doesn't like how you live your life, right? So having just freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to be who you are is a human right. Having extra rights on top of that, like feeling like you deserve access to medication or access to surrogate mothers or all sorts of these extra things, are going above and beyond what human rights actually are.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, in a world where, you know, we could find agreement with all these things, whatever rights were being demanded under the LGBTQ umbrella would be human rights that would apply to all people. So the right, for example, to have the sexual orientation of your choosing.
Yeah, that would be part of freedom of expression.
That would be a human right. But if you had something that was rights that not all people shared, that would then be something that would be an add-on that would not really be very consistent with human rights.
Right, and it could be considered Orwellian double-speak to claim them as rights.
Okay, so human rights. So we got a couple of, I'm wondering if we're all on the same page with respect to these terms. So we have two terms, human rights and trans rights. And we want to understand what these are. So I think I just want to ask a few clarifying questions just to see what people think about this. So when you hear the term human rights, Rachel, how would you define that term?
The right to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all, without discrimination, without the fear of living in fear of being discriminated for who you are. I would think
Okay, so human rights were including the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Morrigan, do you think, is that your view, or do you have a different view of human rights?
You know, I'm going to be very radical, and this is going to be philosophical. It's a little bit like Foucault, but not like how Foucault is seen today. I think applying him today would be, you know, that I identify as a human being, and that as a constitutional basis, and as well other components of law and society, human beings are all the same. We have the same legal basis to exist in the society with all the same protections and freedoms. And I think that what's included in human rights already include these other categories, and these other categories aren't needed.
Okay, so let's go for trans rights now. So how do you define trans rights, or what are trans rights?
again, I think that's a social construct. It is made up. Trans, again, it is someone who's wanting to live in a world and in a made-up Frankenstein body of the opposite sex. So what is that? What is that considered? You're having somebody with body dysmorphia or dysphoria that you are affirming, and now you're going to cater to that person's delusion. So trans, in terms of what you believe trans is, and that's your contention, is identifying as and seeing yourself as the opposite sex? Is that what you see it as? They feel like they were born in the wrong body. They're affirmed by either woke parents or therapists or big pharma. This is brainwashing to the hilt, especially for young children. There's no such thing as a trans child. And again, basic human rights, I don't believe there should be any variation for anybody in any way, shape, or form. Gay people weren't accepted into society, but I understand that is now not an issue. I don't feel like we need to have separate spaces for people with mental illness.
Okay. All right. So, I just want to get Morrigan's. We want to drill down into this and try and figure out how you would move back and forth here. But I just wanted to get your response to that first.
Oh, it's so hard. I think she touched on so many good points, but at the same time, I'm going to be radical, just so radical that, all of these constructions that she's talking about, like the creation of categories, the creation of spaces for certain people who can't get out or have to belong there. If I really apply all the things we learned during the civil rights movement, we were actually trying to do the same thing she's doing, is try to break out. We want to literally tear those things down so we can choose for ourselves and not have, not be controlled. And I think it comes down to really, why are all these rights and liberation and empowerment and all this identity politics, why is it so controlling? Why is it totalitarian? Why can't we just step out of these identity groups?
Okay, so that's an implication of that. So in terms of what Rachel was saying about the reality, I guess the material reality of it. Like, this is the question: is like gay. No one is disputing that certain people want to have sex with the same sex, same-sex interactions. That's a thing that does exist. We're not disputing that. But it seems like you're kind of disputing whether there is such a thing of someone being born in the wrong body.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I absolutely do not believe that 100%.
Okay, so I want to drill down on that, your objection to that a little bit. So you are on, in terms of saying, okay, so let's start over and we'll do this, we'll do start on neutral. So people who are either male or female can be born in the wrong body. Like, they can be born, if you are considered to be female at birth and the doctors are saying you can be actually a man. You can be a man. And that's something that does actually exist in a material sense. No, intersex is another issue which we can get into, but we're just simplifying it a little bit now. So is there circumstances where you can have someone who is, as they say, assigned sex at birth, who is actually born in the wrong body and is the opposite sex? They just have, it hasn't really just been discovered yet. Do you, or that's the claim, that there are those circumstances which exist of people being born in the wrong body. Okay, so I'm going to steel man this because I want to I'm going to put forward the argument that I think, and I heard Julie Ray Goldstein make this argument in March 2019 when she was participating on a panel, and she was arguing that it's in the brain. It's a material situation in the brain. So if you are someone who's been assigned, and she was assigned being a man or being male at birth, but was actually, in her view, she was female because her brain had a characteristic of it which gave her all the various understandings and so on that a woman did. So therefore she was a woman. That is the argument that she put forward. Are there any other arguments that you think would lend credence to this position?
Well, this is very difficult, so I feel like I'm just winging it. But, if I'm thinking about really applying the same logic to other things, just to really philosophize, I have a right to my own mind. That's a right to conscience, and we all have a right to believe things that are not of utility value or of desirability value to the powerful, to other people. If I want to believe in fairies and Santa Claus, I'm allowed to, because I have that right. The only problem, I think, is that as we're born, as natural law conceives of our basis to as intelligent beings to form more civilization, we have to have some kind of balance, and that balance is, I think, so fine line that we can't allow it to be manipulated too far, because there's already things like others have said, grooming, there's indoctrination, there's really dangerous ideologies that can interfere with our ability to develop and our ability to even form our basis in society.
Okay, so in terms of our movement from Rachel, in terms of what I was saying about Julie Ray Goldstein's argument, what would you need in order to have an argument like that move you from the strongly disagree position to the disagree position?
I wouldn't. I do agree, though, that people can have their own minds and believe in what they want to believe in. But honestly, and even if you take it from a religious stance, nobody was born into the wrong body. And if a woman says she has the mind of a man, there's a lot to be said for what's going on in society today, where a lot of women have to take on more of a masculine role, say in families, or maybe it's their social environment or how they were raised. There's many women who were deemed strong or bitches because they seem to be more of a leader and more masculine in many ways. Does that make them a man? No.
Okay, so what makes them a man? What would make someone a man?
Testosterone and having XY chromosomes? Sorry,
what is?
Yeah.
Okay, so biological features, but what happens if someone who has XX chromosomes has very high testosterone levels?
So that's hormones. So would you have a balance of hormones? That maybe is somebody born a woman with high testosterone? There's women who do grow beards. There's women who do have, there's a lot of more Middle Eastern women who do tend to seem to have that.
Okay, so in terms of, like, if we were able to have scientific studies whereby it could be shown that there was such a thing, there was a particular brain composition that was associated with this notion of trans and being born in the wrong body, would that lead you to move at all?
And they're born with biological parts akin to their
So they had the biological parts, but they got surgically altered and so on, but their brain, it's shown that the reason why they needed to get those alterations is because, and it's been scientifically studied, and this is a phenomenon, that there's a particular brain composition that makes people who would be typically seen as being a biological female identify themselves as being a man. Would that change your position? Would you move to like a disagree or a slightly disagree position?
I'm mostly concerned with children in this situation, but if an adult feels they want to live this certain way, change their hormonal makeup to suit their life and make them happy, I do agree with that. I don't feel like we should pay for it. I don't feel like they should have any more rights than anybody else, but I would move over to the slightly.
But would you see that more as of the phenomenon of trans having some kind of legitimacy, I guess, or something that you could say, yes, that seems to me to be a category that I now accept, rather than saying, the kinds of things like, this is just some kind of psychological thing or whatever it might be.
So, I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit of intersex. I have a friend who had a daughter. She was born with both parts, penis and vagina, and they decided because the appendage was easier to get rid of, they took away the penis and raised this baby as a girl. It turns out that this girl is very much manly, very masculine, a lesbian, you would say, because she does like men. Does like women. And it's very interesting what goes on, chemically, and you think about nurture versus nature. There's a few stories like that where those unfortunate things happen, and I don't want to discount that, but do I feel like I would give them any more credence? There are anomalies, and I do accept that.
Okay, Morrigan, what's like in terms of this trying to make this sense of this identity category. Are you sort of following along the same lines as Rachel, or do you have some responses to that?
Good question. I think that lesbians, especially masculine lesbians known as tomboys, are at such high risk at this moment due to the culture and due to, even if they want to just be themselves, they're erased by this current culture, which says that there's a gender thing, they're trans, and that they should change themselves to become manly. And again, I think it comes down to the split we talked about earlier, is that the gay rights movement was an ontology of aligning with what naturally is, and the trans movement is moving further away from this with big pharma and surgery. So at the end of the day, I agree there should be, not too much overly controlling people, but we should not be funneling people and really be thinking about the harm, because all these people who do go through with these surgeries early on as young people, they detransition and they regret it at times. So this does happen, and it's sterilization, it's for life, right? Okay,
so in terms of looking at some more claims, what kinds of things do you think we should look at right now? What would be good to get into?
Good to get into would be, actually, I'm still thinking. I don't know.
What about you, Rachel? Is there a claim you think that hasn't really been stated that would be good to examine?
Well, I think what we're here for is to be able to talk about these things on campus, right? And have the right to do so without being booted or fired for having these conversations. So I feel like we should address what's going on in the universities and how they are basically grooming, brainwashing students in order to believe one way and not allowing for dissenting voices.
Okay, so since we're on the pride steps here, this brings up a good question. So go to neutral. Universities should have the pride colors displayed prominently in many, many places. 4, 3, 2, 1, move.
What's many?
Okay. So Kathy, do you want to steel man this? Okay. So I'll give you the. Okay. So you're on disagree, Morrigan, and Rachel is on strongly disagree. So why wouldn't you be on strongly disagree? Why are you on disagree?
Well, because the civil rights movement was so important from the 60s to the 90s, and I think that at that point something got forgotten and something got really confused. And what that really is modernity. We live in modern countries with modern law and society, and in terms of what it means to partake in society and to be integrated, is that we honor a social contract, and that is that we all respect each other's rights. And so once we achieve that, why are we constantly pushing identity politics to the point of totalitarianism? What is it doing? It's undermining the social contract, and we're just dividing people.
But in terms of these pride steps here, these colors of the pride, like, what is totalitarian about that?
Well, does it actually help me? I went to school here, and it was actually not very easy. And today, I think with all this identity politics that have gotten worse, I experience more hatred, more bigotry today because of these issues being misrepresented to people who know nothing about it.
So why then are you not on the strongly disagree with Rachel? Why are you one over on the disagree?
Well, because I think that symbols at times have uses, just like words and labels and pictures. We're all free to write poems and make art and movies, and symbols are everywhere. The question is, why are we what is the function of those symbols, and why are we dictating them? And is it actually helping people like me, or is it alienating others, or is it, why can't we just, live in a modern way? Why is it postmodern?
Okay, Rachel, so you're over on the strongly disagree. What have you got against universities painting these colors all over the place and celebrating trans identities? Doesn't that just make them feel like they're included within the university system and make them more, feel that they belong more within the university?
So why don't we have flags for left-handed people? Why don't we have flags for, Italians, or like this special, I don't know, like this is propaganda. This is woke, far left propaganda used to play on the emotions and compassions of people to garner sympathies. It is absolute, again, it's in our face. It's creating more damage than it is good, because people are getting sick and tired of being shoved down their throats. Full stop, this is propaganda.
But can't you just decide to walk on by and not pay any attention? Like it's gonna help people who feel a little bit insecure on campus, feel that they don't belong, and you feel like you're a very confident person. I don't think. Do you think this is really going to be something that impacts you in any negative way?
I'm going to let everybody know that I'm a recovering liberal, and I used to fight for these rights and get rainbow sidewalks in my town painted on. And I'm actually happy to say that I have evolved and I've turned a corner. I feel like it's absolutely putrid right now what's going on, and no, when I look at these, I don't want to walk on these steps. I don't want to give to a business with these flags. Again, it's garnering the sympathies, it's down our throats, it is to make you emotional, to breed some sort of guilt and shame within you.
Okay. I'm going to go to Kathy now, since we're going to hear from the strongly agree position on this. So, and the claim is that universities, and this is not individuals, so if you want to, have a pride colors on your sweater and stuff, this is all good. But universities should be having the pride flag and the pride colors in all sorts of areas. This is what universities should be doing. And your position is going to be that you're going to argue the strongly agree side of this.
So this is difficult for me, because this is not actually what I believe.
So this is not what Matt would you be on?
I would be on strongly disagree, because I think universities should remain neutral.
Okay, so, but you're going to try the best that you can to put forth and this is why we need people who are strongly in favor of these kinds of initiatives to be arguing this point. But we're going to let Kathy give it her best try. Like, what do you think is the best argument for universities, painting steps in these colors and so on?
So, I'm going to try and put myself in the mind frame of the activists, in which they kind of see the university as a battleground. And so it's kind of like digging in the trenches to say, we've claimed this territory for our ideology, for our beliefs, and if you disagree with that, it's because you're a bad person. And if you're a bad person, you shouldn't be welcome on campus. And so I get to decide that you are a bad person because you disagree with these colors. So we're going to blatantly put these colors out here to weed out all of the quote-unquote bad people.
So if you disagree, if in this position, could it be argued that people who take issue and are really like someone like Rachel over there, who's taking issue with that, perhaps they shouldn't be coming to university at all and having this really negative, harmful kind of position, which is going to make certain elements, they can just walk on by these steps and not criticize it, because that's going to have these really negative consequences for a certain segment of the population.
Right. So earlier when Rachel was saying that people who are doing extreme body modifications kind of get in this Frankenstein body, and someone said that was incredibly hateful of her to say. I mean, arguably, she should be frog marched off the campus if that's what they believe. But is she incorrect? Because people are removing huge parts of their forearm to try and create penises that can't work, and it causes a whole bunch of physical harm to people to actually go through these procedures. So I think that, in that case, if I'm going to try and strongly agree, we need to affirm people's identities. And if you don't affirm their identities in a very overt way, then it means that you aren't doing enough to battle hate.
Yeah, so there's a lot of the argument, I guess. So this would be the argument, is there's, I wonder if you'd agree with this or not, there's a lot of hate on campuses, and painting steps, putting flags up is a way to reduce that hate.
That's the idea I think that they have. Yeah, so I'm going to agree.
Okay, so if you strongly agree with that, that's sort of what you think, in its most sort of positive way. As well, it's just, what about inclusion? Does this make certain people feel more included than they would be if we just decided, no, the university should not be involved in doing this. It should just, basically take off the paint of all these areas, take down these flags. Would that make people feel that they were being excluded from the university system?
Yeah, I think unless there were these flags and colors here, people would feel like they might have to hear an alternative point of view, because this is basically saying you're not allowed to have an alternative point of view. So this helps insulate them from trauma from hearing an alternative point of view.
Okay, so we got a new claim then. We're going to start over on neutral. So the claim is painting things like these steps, using these colors, putting up flags, discourages people from having a dissenting position. Move. It discourages them from having it. Yeah, so these steps discourages students, faculty members of the university community from having a dissenting position, having a critical position on trans activism. So hold up, where are you at? Okay, so Morrigan, you were talking a lot about totalitarianism, these kinds of things. So why are you not on the strongly agree position? Why are you on the slightly agree position?
Well, I'm still formulating my thoughts, but I think the biggest thing is that gays and lesbians, of course, I don't even like these labels. So many people identify as human beings now, and that's important. But people of this category, this identity group, who are essentially tied to whatever this represents, this symbol, this label, this flag, whatever, has whatever meaning attributed to it. If the population that is captured by this disagrees with it, they are excommunicated from spaces that are made for those people. So for gay pride, for example, or safe spaces, I used to be the volunteer coordinator of a center that dealt with sexual diversity, and today, that was 13 years ago, after the civil rights movement. But if I were to go to one of those spaces today, I would probably be kicked out because I'm not allowed to have a different opinion.
Okay, so in terms of, so it sounds like you, in terms of movement, from like moving more towards the disagree sort of area, what kind of evidence would you need to move?
Well, I think that two parts of it are so critical. And the first one is, what do symbols actually signify? What does it mean? Because it means something for some people. I think Justin Trudeau is somebody who, when he recites the alphabet, he doesn't even know what it means, he gets it mixed up. And it's very insulting that all these policies are dictated by people who don't really know what anything is, and then the population themselves don't have a say.
So Rachel, in terms of your position there on the strongly agree that it is discouraging dissent, what would it take to move you towards a more disagreeable position, to become less saying that you agree that it does discourage dissent?
To allow spaces for people to have the voices to have opposing views. I mean, people are being fired if they bring up this subject because they're called homophobe. If you're against mass immigration, you're considered a racist. There's so many ways that they're controlling you and the way you think. This is control. This is control. So you just walk on by, put your head down, be a good little boy or girl, and don't have any say in the matter because of things like DEI and certain ways we're trying to, claim acceptance of everybody. It's gone overboard. So people are terrified. What would it take just to...
Well, what about now? Here we are. We're on the applied colors. We're openly and honestly discussing trans rights or human rights and whether we agree or disagree. Does this not show that it's not as totalitarian as you are maintaining?
I'm not a professor on the campus. I have nothing to lose here.
All right. What do you think? Like the fact that we're able to do this, we don't have any security guards coming over telling us that we got to get out of here. We don't have, people, coming up and having all sorts of, threats or anything like that. We're able to do it. Is this some kind of indication that maybe it's not as, it's kind of the fears are overblown?
Oh boy. I don't think we're out of it yet. I don't think that much freedom exists except for the fact to do things like this independently with no risk because I'm no longer a student here.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question for none of us here are University of Calgary students or professors. We're not there that right now. If you were a professor and you were doing this on the university campus and you were wanting to get a promotion or wanted, various things, then that's another matter. So that would be kind of interesting. But let's say you had a professor who worked here at the University of Calgary. They were openly criticizing trans activism and saying that, whatever these kinds of claims that we're hearing some of them today, and they actually got promoted and they went on to have a great career at the University of Calgary. Would that make you move towards the more disagreeable kind of position on this?
That would be a great day, but that's not what's happening in our country. I would support that person, and I would have hope in what's going on in Canada as far as being able to recognize that this is totalitarian.
Well, I'm going to rebuttal a little bit and be kind of radical or be really staunch. And I guess the key discrepancy is that the cultural narrative is not always the same as our actually existing rights and living within the rights and respecting the rights of others. So that's why we have limitations like hate speech. We're not supposed to do a few certain things that incite violence or, are really unstable for modern nation states. And sometimes the rhetoric isn't exact in terms of what's actually within our rights. So I would actually say that it's not so much about the discourse and if I feel comfortable with it or if I see it move a little bit that I would feel better. I would feel better if we actually live within our modern constitution.
So you mentioned hate speech. Maybe we should, do you have a sense of what that means? Hate speech?
If it's inciting violence and actively, targeting people to do so in a way that is clearly motivated by hatred and seeking that outcome, I think that's what modern hate speech. The definitions of modern hate speech are so clear that it almost never happens anymore. And so, yeah.
Okay, and what's your view? Is that how you see hate speech, incitement to violence?
I do, and I don't feel having these types of discussions or feeling any opposing view is considered hate speech. Freedom of speech is not hate speech, but yeah,
But do you think that that's hate speech in Canadian law? Incitement of violence?
Yes, I think that in order for it to qualify, it really does have to be quite serious. And at the end of the day, if we're all living within our Constitution, having discussions that are not targeting people and not inciting anything divisive, it's very clear that this is free speech.
So, just to end on this, I think we've been going about an hour. Is that correct? I don't want to. Okay, so I think this is the hate speech claim is something that maybe we should end on, just so people know. I believe it is in the Canadian context, which is different than the American. It is to open up a group to detestation and vilification. So, go to neutral. I just want to give your thoughts on this. That's the definition of hate, like in Canadian law, not in like what you would like it to be, etc. So, denying the existence of trans children is hate speech.
You guys do this for me?
So I don't. This is just me trying to steel man this argument. So strongly agree. If you do strongly agree, the argument that I have heard about this is that if you say things like that, the people listening to it will develop a very disparaging attitude towards those who make the claim that they are trans, and this will result in them harming themselves, possibly even committing suicide, and also could lead to other people treating them in really terrible ways. So that's the view. So in terms of your response to that argument, which I have heard that argument, what would be your response to that?
I'll be moderately rebellious here and just say, like, it's not inciting violence, so it's not hate. It doesn't qualify for hate speech. What it might qualify for is a little bit of like, soft discrimination at times if you disagree strongly in the society or whatever. But it is not qualifying as inciting violence and by targeting for the purposes of hatred or whatever.
Rachel, what's your thoughts on that?
Children are actually more prone to, or children who have been used puberty blockers or have been mutilated with altered body parts are more prone to suicide than a child who has been brainwashed into thinking they are the opposite sex. I don't believe it's inciting violence. I don't believe it's hate speech. I believe it's actually protecting children.
So if there were scientific studies that showed that denying the existence of trans children reduced the suicide rate of those children, would that be something that would make you move more towards the slightly disagree and the neutral position?
So we're gonna have that very positive mix, like civil rights.
And it's just because you don't accept that category.
No, I don't believe children are trans at all.
And so why is that? Just so that you can defend that position.
Children aren't a sexual. They're human beings, yes, and they have sexuality. But we are sexualizing our children when we were considering them trans. We are now putting that on our child when the child needs to grow through. Look, even puberty is difficult. They struggle. Let them go through puberty. Let them be. We do not need to be. It comes down to mutilating and puberty blockers for these children. That is abuse. Full stop. Don't.
Morrigan, do you agree with Rachel, or do you have objections to her comments?
I'm a little bit more flexible because, the legal conception of age of consent is not a freedom, it's not a right, it's a protection. And that reason that we have ages of consent on things like sex or driving a vehicle is to protect people from things that they're not really mature enough to really decide for themselves. And so I agree that we need to protect people, but I also am flexible in the sense that many young people already know that, if they're different, if there's variations in sex or gender diversity, that, they need to wait. But we don't need to politicize them.
All right, so we're coming up to the hour point, or we're at it. So, Kathy, is there some things that need to be said that should be said in this context?
I want to also thank the audience for being so polite. No one has tried. We actually got quite a big audience at one point in time, so thank you for not trying to knock my camera over or don't give them ideas. I just want to say that I grew up as a hardcore tomboy. I had short hair. I wore boys' clothes. I played football with the guys every day at lunch through junior high. I was undefeated in arm wrestles until grade 11 against all the guys in my high school. I got a black belt and I would compete against men. I got a silver medal. I got disqualified in a silver medal match for actually punching the guy in the face because he was making fun of me for being a woman. Everyone knew who won that gold medal match. I am so grateful that I didn't have anyone whispering in my ear or grooming me into some sort of special identity that made me part of a quote-unquote community. When you're young and you're vulnerable and you want to be a part of something, you want to be trendy, that sort of thing. I got to grow up and now I'm a mother to beautiful children. I get to enjoy my femininity. I also get to enjoy being masculine. I still climb mountains and rock climb and all sorts of things. So I'm just really, really grateful that my body got to remain intact. And I think that the idea that it's hateful to say that children's bodies are being mutilated, I actually think that the whole trans agenda is hateful. It's promoting self-hatred.
Whoa. Okay, well, we didn't get we got a certain amount of different opinions here. So I think we've been doing this about an hour. We had quite a few people watching what we're doing. The fact that we're able to do this, I find is very encouraging because it, to some extent, makes me think that maybe there is more openness in terms of discussing these contentious ideas. We have had 3 Spectre and Street epistemology sessions at the University of Calgary. We're hoping to do more when the weather gets warmer. It's going to get winter soon, so it looks like our days are numbered outside. And if there is someone who would like to have some time to say things or participate, then we're open to that. But we will be coming back probably in the spring. We did look at 3 different issues. Okay. Is he in the frame?
Hi. Yeah, so as I told her, it's good to have these civil engagement, right, proper discussions or debates. I'm also part of a non-funded organization called Empowered Canadians, and the leader of it is a lawyer who cross-examined Justin Trudeau. So we're having a debate before the year ends. I would like to invite anyone who's interested.
What is the debate on?
It's just various topics on economics, environmental, and civil rights, of course. So if anyone's happy to join, you should.
And how can we find out more about this?
Follow us on Instagram on Empowered Canadians.
Empowered Canadians on Instagram. That's your group?
And Youth for Discourse.
And the event is called Youth for Discourse.
Youth for Discourse. Okay, well, this is very great. Thank you so much for letting us know about that. So, thanks everyone for being interested. And this is on, for people who want to watch the whole session, it is on Kathy Drake's Twitter account, which is Nula, N-U-L-A. I forget. All right, Nula, N-U-L-A, Moon, M-O-O-N, Snail, S-N-A-I-L, and you can watch the entire session on X, on Twitter, what used to be called Twitter.
Do you have any?
The fact that we've been able to hold these 3 events, they've all been great. We've all live streamed them all. We're hoping to come back when the weather gets warmer. But thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. And until next time, we're signing out from the University of Calgary. Thank you.
And thank you, Francis Widdowson.
Thanks very much. And thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Morrigan. And thank you very much,
Rachel,
who is going back to BC soon. Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, I live right here.
Okay.